Hello everyone, and thanks so much for tuning in. I am your host, Dr. Joretta Carey, welcoming you all aboard as we move full steam ahead. My guest today is a manufacturing operations professional currently residing in Atlanta, Georgia. Born and raised in the Bahamas, she relocated to the US in 2013 to obtain her bachelor's degree in industrial engineering and graduated from the University of South Florida as the 2017 Summer Outstanding Graduate. Now, as a working professional, she volunteers with her company's employee resource groups, including serving as the University Outreach Chair for their Women in STEM chapter. Her passion for service led her to co-found a nonprofit organization called ImagineU, whose purpose is to help students see the connection between STEM and creating positive change in their communities. Welcome to the show, Miss Garrett Bowleg.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me.
It's so good to have you on the show today, Garrett. There's so much to talk about, especially as it relates to engineering.
Yes.
And so, yes, we know that it's part of our childhood to include dreaming about the future. And the question is often asked, well, hey, what do you want to be when you grow up? And looking at the work that you do, some of it is done in the office, some of it involves going out into the field, wearing your work boots, goggles, and safety helmet. Was this something that you always imagined doing as a child?
Honestly, it was not something that I imagined doing as a child. For a really long time, I wanted to be a pediatrician. And that was my childhood answer to the question, what do you want to be when you grow up? Was a pediatrician. And once that kind of faded away, I started thinking about journalism. And then engineering really came into play when it was mentioned to me by my dad and a few other people in my life that just said, hey, have you ever thought about engineering? And honestly, I can't really remember hearing about it or knowing that engineering was an option until it was brought to my attention. And so once I kind of looked into it, I felt that it was right for me. And I actually went into school to pursue civil engineering. And when I got there and we have this introduction to engineering course, I saw that industrial engineering was an option, and after understanding what that field entailed, that's how I made my decision.
Wow, wonderful. So we definitely see their exposure plays a key role, and actually early exposure. And
exactly.
Something we're going to talk about a bit later when we start to talk about the work of ImagineU. So, do you feel that your educational experiences, like say in high school, did that actually prepare you for a solid start in a STEM career?
Yes, I definitely feel that it did. So I studied under the IB program in high school. And so during my time in that program, I did a lot of really college level math and physics courses. And so that was able to give me the insight and the head start that I needed because engineering majors are so science and math heavy. I felt that I was fully prepared for that.
Great. And definitely we see that through your program that is something that you are keen on offering to persons who fit that age bracket, the high school students.
Yes.
Awesome. So tell us a bit more about your college experience as an engineering major. You mentioned being enrolled in your IB program, and how, of course, that would have helped to prepare you for the college experiences. But can you just share a bit more about what your college experience was actually like?
Yes, definitely. So when it came to coursework, I would say any engineering program is difficult. You do have to learn to collaborate and work with your peers and everyone that's kind of going through what you're going through as well in terms of the course level, the course difficulty. And so I think in that regard, it was good. Of course, you have your days when you're, am I in the right major? But you push through, and I think any engineering major will tell you that we all go through those days. But at the end of the day, it's so rewarding when you do pass that exam and you are able to study and get through that. And I was able to join organizations that helped me through this as well. Like the Society of Women Engineers was one organization that I got involved in quite early on. And there's lots of resources there. You meet other female engineers that are going through what you're going through as well. You share study notes, you network together, you go to conferences together. And that was really how I got my 2 internships throughout my time when I was in college. And major internships are another thing that's vital to kind of being successful after you graduate. And so I have those organizations and relationships to thank for that.
Wonderful. And that's one of the key components that we really try to build as persons who are advocates for introducing children to STEM. You have your critical thinking and problem solving abilities, but teamwork is a very key part of that, as we see that all of the STEM-based careers definitely require teamwork to be effective. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. I agree.
Okay. So we know that you're from the Bahamas and you've done your education, your formative education, as far as at the tertiary level, you've completed that in the United States. Were there any particular moments or experiences that stand out being a Bahamian student working and living abroad?
Yeah, I would definitely say for me, just the initial transition period is something that I really remember as having to just be about making that transition. I think initially I figured it would be an easy transition, but having come from the Bahamas, a much smaller community, and then also in my high school there were 14 students in my class that I graduated with. So going from that environment to a university now with 40,000 students and hundreds of students in one class, it can be a little bit intimidating. I mean, for me, I didn't really have to make friends back at home. I was in the same class with the same people from 4th grade or earlier, and we just kind of grew up together. So coming to university and having to put yourself out there, be open-minded, make friends with people that you don't know, presents a bigger challenge than you think. And I didn't or realize it at the time, but I think for my first year of university, I kind of hid in my shell a little bit. I kind of, did my work, went to my dorm room, that kind of thing. And after a while, I said, this isn't me. This isn't who I am. I want to have an image where, and so I really had to be intentional about putting myself out there, joining organizations and meeting people so that when I did leave college, it was something to be proud of, something memorable, something that somewhere that I could have an impact. So I would say that was kind of one of the biggest challenges for me, is just getting out of the small town, small island kind of mindset and getting to just put myself out there and be comfortable with showing others who I am as well.
Great. And I'm sure throughout that entire experience, you were able to learn even so much more about yourself.
Yes, definitely learn more about myself, because before that, I wouldn't have considered myself an introvert even, because like I said, at home, everybody knows you kind of know everybody. So you're kind of a social butterfly per se. But I think going there, I realized that I am a little bit of an introvert. It does take a little bit more for me to introduce myself to someone that I don't know. And so just an opportunity to learn your strengths and your weaknesses and build on those weaknesses as well.
Yes, and especially for your chosen career, like we mentioned earlier, collaboration is key for success,
Exactly.
especially when you're working on, those projects. So it's a good thing to master and, to actually conquer something like that. It can only benefit you and the way that
Exactly.
you are able to interact with your members of the team.
Yes.
So, what advice, beside that, that's really great advice in terms of encouraging persons to get out of their comfort zone, because that is really where big things happen. That's how great things happen, right? Going out there and not being afraid to explore the world. But what other advice would you give to someone who wants to pursue a career in engineering?
I would say definitely the earlier you know, the better. And I think it kind of worked out for me where I was already enrolled in high school classes that would kind of make for a smooth transition. But I think
Right,
getting that foundation in high school is so essential. You know, focusing on those math and science courses will go a very long way in an engineering program because it is so math intensive and heavy that when you get there, you want to at least have to have some sort of foundation. And if you're not able to do that in high school, maybe taking extra courses or going out of your way to just get as much of that foundation as possible, because that will go a long way once you're enrolled in classes. I know we mentioned this, but I would also say collaboration. I think for me as an introvert or someone that enjoys working alone, I think you can miss out, especially in an engineering environment when you're in college, because it's just a collaborative environment, right? Even when you're doing homework, when you're doing projects together, you want to share your answers or get feedback from other people. What did you guys think of this? And it really goes a long way. A problem that you may have spent hours pondering on alone in your dorm room, you
right.
talk to other classmates about how they got their answers and, really begin
Yeah,
to understand things fully. So definitely collaboration, putting yourself out there is another one. And also getting involved in extracurricular activities, finding somewhat of a passion and a purpose for what it is that you're doing with Society of Women Engineers, or even nonprofit STEM-based organizations. I think it kind of makes you fall in love with your craft or really see the impact beyond just being in school and learning, how this applies in the real world. I think just finding a realm or another opportunity to become passionate about what it is that you're doing will only motivate you more to be successful in those courses and pursue your career post graduation as well.
wonderful advice. So, one of the other keys I see in terms of advice is to immerse yourself in that,
Yes.
because you would
Yes.
find that no matter what your chosen career is, there is a particular culture.
Yes, I agree. There is a culture, there is a family. So make yourself a part of that family, I would say. Be an engineer or be a whatever field that you're studying, but be that wholeheartedly, kind of embody what that means.
Wonderful. So, we'll be back after this very short break. And we're back. My guest for today is Miss Garrett Bowleg. She's an industrial engineer working out of the Atlanta, Georgia area. Now we'll shift gears a bit and talk about your nonprofit organization, ImagineU. So tell us the story behind getting that started.
Okay, so I would say that going into engineering or really any career that I would have chosen, I knew that I wanted to give back. And more specifically, I wanted to give back to the Bahamas. As I mentioned earlier, engineering and STEM really I wasn't really exposed to those careers as early as I think, would have been beneficial. And that's just because of, lack of resources, lack of information, whatever the case may be. And I wanted to make sure that other students at home knew what was available to them, especially when it came to STEM careers and how they could take those careers and help to develop our country, especially a nation that I feel could use developing, especially from our future leaders. So the inspiration for me was wanting to spread that message to other Bahamian high schoolers and students that were going to be coming up after me. And so I spoke to that. I spoke a lot about that with my colleague, Carol, who was another co-founder of ImagineU. And both of us really had similar experience with wanting to share that message, understanding how the resources that we had got us to where we were in our lives currently. And so that was inspiration. We started talking about it, throughout the last 2 years of our college careers, just conversations. And once we graduated, we decided to put pen to paper and make it happen.
Wonderful. So you just went for it. You had that passion to share with others, and everything, of course, would just fall in place to make that start.
Yes.
So what are some of the highlights since starting ImagineU?
Okay, I would say our first major highlight was becoming officially an incorporated nonprofit organization. As simple as that sounds, for us going into it and not really knowing what all the steps were, just getting through the paperwork phase and your articles of incorporation and getting that document and saying, okay, now we're official. Let's make some things happen, right? So we did that, and our first major event, which you were a part of, was our Engineering Our Future conference that we hosted in Freeport. And this was special to me because, like I mentioned, a part of this organization, I really wanted to focus on giving back to the Bahamas. And so again, with this one, we just kind of jumped right in. We were able to get over $10,000 in sponsorships for that first event, which was a major accomplishment for us, something that we did not expect going into it. And so just to see the response from the community that this is something that people know that our communities need and that they are willing to give in order to make those events happen. And so we had that first event in Freeport with about 100 students, middle school age students. And it was such a great success. The parents loved it, the students loved it, the volunteers, we were so thankful for their work on that day. And that has probably been the highlight of what we've been able to do so far. And since then, it's been somewhat of a struggle to get back because so much has happened in the Bahamas since then with the hurricanes and now COVID. And so it's just a matter of adjusting. And so for this year, we're doing STEM kits that we will be just putting together, just Carol and myself, of STEM experiments and boxes that we will be sending to local schools in the Atlanta and Seattle area, just to continue to have some impact even during these kind of unprecedented times.
Okay, wow, that sounds amazing. So what I like about what you just shared is that you guys have decided to pivot. The ImagineU experience that was held here in Freeport, Grand Bahama, it was an in-person experience, but now based on what you shared, now you're actually delivering that door-to-door where the students are at. And so great, that's wonderful, wonderful news.
Yes.
So share with us a bit about your career journey.
Okay. Yeah. So I started, as I mentioned, with those two with the college level organizations that I was a part of. I was able to get 2 internships with those, being a part of those organizations. And so my first one was in a manufacturing engineering position, and that was in a company in North Carolina. And that's another point just to kind of put in there as an engineering major as well. When you're doing those internships and even postgraduate, be open to travel and just being open to experiencing new things in new places, I think it will go a long way in an engineering career as well. So my first one, like I said, was in North Carolina. My second internship was with another company. I wanted to get some more well-rounded exposure in the engineering field. So I took a quality engineering role for a defense company in Orlando, Florida. And then after that, I was really looking for, okay, I'm about to graduate, you know, where do I see myself? And so in engineering careers, a lot of companies have rotational programs. And so I've heard about those. And so I kind of lasered my focus on getting into a rotational program post-graduation, because I feel that you do a lot of coursework, you do internships, but sometimes you still aren't able to pin down exactly, you know, which function or department or, you know, exactly where you see yourself as an engineer. And the rotational programs really give you the opportunity to, you know, dip your toes in operations, dip your toes in a supply chain and various things. And so that was very appealing to me, and I think to a lot of up and coming engineers. So that's how I ended up with Emerson, which is the company that I'm with now. I joined their Engineers in Leadership rotational program. And so with that program, I spent 1 year in Atlanta, Georgia, working in operations. Did a lot. I learned a lot there, was responsible for a few projects during my rotation there for 12 months. And then I had the opportunity to spend a year in Shanghai, China, where I worked in marketing and business development in my second rotation. So again, I went from operations role to a marketing role, which is something that I would have never had the opportunity to experience, I think. So I was very grateful for that. And at the end of the program, I came back to Atlanta, and now I am working in operations again. So it's been quite a journey, but I'm very, very happy about it.
Wonderful. It seems to be a very exciting and rewarding journey.
Yes, definitely.
Great. So we've come to the segment in the program that I call blowing off some steam. Okay, so here's how it works. I'm going to ask you a question in each one of the categories: science, technology, engineering, art, and math. All right?
Okay. Yep.
We'll get started with that. All right, so in the category of science, what's your favorite science subject?
Ooh, that's a good one. I would probably say physics, even though it gave me the most stress in high school, the most difficult time. I like that it's practical. I like that I can kind of see a little bit of what I'm doing, understand. I'm a very like practical kind of visual person, and I think physics, I enjoyed that one the most. And it was also the one that I kind of spent the most time learning about as well, so.
All right, good for you. Physics is my least favorite science subject.
Yeah.
But I had to complete it.
Yes.
It's all part of the journey. What about technology? How do you use technology to carry out your daily task at work?
Definitely everything is really very much computer-based, Excel-based. I would say that I did a lot of learning Excel and functions and formulas when I was in college. And a lot of that are some of the things that I use today. So that part of technology, manufacturing floors. We also have, you know, iPads, things that help with efficiency with our production workers. So technology plays a very big role in just creating an efficient work environment at our business.
Great. Now, engineering in this category, if you could choose to pursue a career in another branch of engineering, what would it be and why?
That's a good one. I would probably say civil engineering, because that's what I originally went to college to pursue. I think, and what attracted me to industrial engineering was that I felt like it was the best of both worlds, a little bit of business with also the kind of science side of engineering, and that's why I went with it. But civil, just again, the practicality of it, working with bridges and roads and all of that sort of thing. I think that's a little bit intriguing because infrastructure today to me is extremely fascinating, especially here in the US, how these roads and highways go up. I think civil engineering could be interesting.
Okay. So even based on what you said, before we go on to art, do you prefer working behind your computer or out in the field?
A little bit of both. I would say I do lean more towards kind of out in the field, or in my case, out in the manufacturing facility. Just again, getting hands-on, working with employers, seeing how we can, employees, seeing how we can improve their processes. I do prefer kind of being, steel-toe boots, protective glasses, all of that. So I think that's my preference.
Awesome. Okay, so on to the category of art. How do you best express yourself creatively?
That's a good question, because I always say I'm not the most creative person, but I try to stop saying that and really trying to hone in on ways that I can be. But I've always taken dance classes since I was a very young girl. That's kind of the creative activity that has stuck with me the longest. And it's really, for me now, it's nothing professional or nothing that I want a career out of, but it's a way that I can express myself creatively, kind of take a breather from the day to day. And so I find it to be a very kind of therapeutic thing right now. So anytime I do try to take a dance class or a dance fitness class. So that's how I kind of get to express myself creatively.
Great. Yeah, it's definitely important to keep that balance.
Yes.
We care about that. What's your favorite style of dance?
Probably jazz and hip hop, but like a combination of those.
Okay. Great. Okay, so on to math. Now, calculus. Oh my gosh. I have to take calculus. A lot of persons, they just shriek at the mention of that word. How did you tackle this subject?
So honestly, I have my high school to thank for the exposure that I had to calculus before getting to college. Because of that, I was able to skip pre-calculus in college. I was able to skip college algebra. And I went straight into Calc 1. And that was a blessing and a curse in one, because it's jumping right into things. But honestly, the foundation. And even with the foundation, I struggled. I mean, sometimes sitting in my professor's office, I need to understand this. I don't get it. Please explain this to me, over and over again. It's just one of those things that I don't think it comes naturally. It's just something that you have to study. It's a repetition, do as many problems as you can. But I will say, and with my major, I had to go up to Calc 3. And oh boy, I couldn't wait. I couldn't wait to be done with it. But you're right, it's so tough. My advice there is just to ask questions. I think in college, sometimes we don't want to seem like we're asking a stupid question. And really at that age, there's no such thing, because at the end of the day, your goal is to get through this class and pass the class and not have to retake it. And so ask as many questions, go to your teacher's office hours and, have explain that problem to you. And it goes a long way. So that's how I worked through it.
Yes, tutoring, all of that.
Yes.
So definitely the key is persisting through it and keeping your eye on the end goal at all
Yes,
times.
exactly.
Great. So tell our viewers how they're able to contact you and find out more about even the ImagineU program.
Yes. So you can email us at info.imagineu@gmail.com. Also, my personal email, garrettbowleg@gmail.com, for any engineering related questions or not that you have. I'm completely open to that. I'm also on Instagram at _GIGIE _ again. You can reach out to me on there with any questions. Facebook, again, my first and last name. So be on the lookout. And for ImagineU, we're in the process of launching our website. So if you do follow us on social media, you'll be able to kind of celebrate that launch with us on there as well. So.
Okay, wonderful. Sounds good. Definitely looking forward to that and to see ImagineU's presence more in our communities, even here at home.
Definitely.
Okay, be sure to follow RBNTV Studios on all of our social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Turn on your notification bell so you're sure not to miss any of our shows. Do you have any final words for our viewers today?
Yes, I do. Just wanting to say to continue to seek out information, I think is key. You know, if you're really interested in a certain field or don't know as much information as you would like, just do that research, especially when it comes to STEM fields, because I think sometimes it's not readily available or not easy to understand. Of course, I'm available, but there are so many resources as well that I just think can help to educate up and coming students that are thinking about pursuing STEM careers. Just seek out that information and stay committed and dedicated, and it will definitely pay off in the end.
Wonderful advice. Well, folks, that does it for our show for today. ImagineU, engineering your future as you move full steam ahead. Bye-bye.
You're watching RBNTV. We are networking, promoting, we're scoring points for you, proclaiming, declaring, here to encourage you. No matter the problem, we will enlighten you. We hear you, please listen, there is